6. I'm 79. The first rule my Amish husband gave me after marriage broke me. The white ribbon on my wedding bonnet is still stiff with starch, and it scratches the soft place under my chin every time I swallow. The room is cold enough that my toes ache inside my black shoes, but my palms are wet. On the table, the kerosene lamp makes one tiny popping sound, then another. My husband Daniel closes the door. The latch doesn't catch the first time. It never does. He lifts it with 2 fingers, presses his shoulder to the wood, and tries again. I notice because he won't look at me. He just keeps rubbing the seam of his left sleeve over and over, like the thread might tell him what to do. Then he gives me the first rule of our marriage. He says it softly, almost kindly. And that's the thing nobody tells you. The words that break you don't always sound cruel. Sometimes they come in a shaking voice from a man who's frightened too. Sometimes they're dressed like duty. Sometimes everyone you love seems to agree with them without ever saying them aloud. I want to ask him who teaches him that rule. I want to ask why no woman warns me. I want to know what happens if I refuse. But my tongue stays flat behind my teeth. No, wait, I do speak. I whisper one word, just one. He hears me, and what he does next stays in my body for 60 years. I'm Sarah. I'm 79 now. Quick pause. My name is Sarah, and this is Rebecca Amish Home. If these stories make you feel less alone, subscribe. It's free, and it keeps these voices alive. Tell me below, were you taught love meant never saying no? A Super Chatter membership says these voices matter and keeps them heard. Now, back to what happened. What happened was so ordinary that part of me wants to protect it. That was how our Ordnung worked. The rule didn't arrive as a rule. It lived in where women sat at supper, who spoke first after meeting, which questions made a room go still. We were taught that a wife yielded to her husband because order kept a home from falling into pride. Nobody gave me a lesson on that. I learned it from Mama sliding the largest biscuit toward Dade even when she hadn't eaten, and from Aunt Ruth lowering her eyes when Uncle Amos corrected her. The bishop said peace when what he meant was no argument. I was 12 when I understood a married woman's body was part of her duty. Though nobody said it plainly, we were trusted to hold newborn calves slippery with birth, but not trusted with plain facts about ourselves. That's the thing nobody tells you. The rule lived best in small things. A wife didn't lock a door. She didn't sleep facing the wall too long. She didn't make her husband feel turned away, because a man who felt turned away might be led toward sin, and somehow his sin could become her shame. I watched cousin Miriam pull her hand from her husband's grip outside the wash house one November. His face didn't change, but her mother saw it. At quilting next week, Miriam sat by the window with blue thread caught on her cuff, and no one asked why she barely spoke. I almost asked Mama what a woman was allowed to refuse. My mouth even opened. Then Sister Lena glanced at me over her spectacles, and I bent my head as if I'd dropped a needle. Nothing was said. That was the lesson. By the time Daniel closed our bedroom door, the whole community was standing there with us, though the room held only 2 people. 3 weeks before the wedding, my older sister Anna took me behind the summer kitchen where the rain barrel leaned sideways. She said 13 words. I counted them later because I hoped I'd missed some. Be patient, keep still, and don't make him feel ashamed of wanting you. That was all. Anna was 23. No, 24. I always get that wrong because her birthday fell during threshing. She smelled of lye soap and warm milk, and kept wiping her thumb across a crack in the barrel lid. I asked if it hurt. She looked toward the house before answering. It gets easier. Daniel had received even less. His father told him a husband should lead gently and not linger over private things. Two young people entered marriage, carrying rules, warnings, and no useful truth. We weren't foolish. We were made ignorant, then expected to behave as if ignorance were purity. I'd known Daniel since childhood, though I first noticed him at 17 when he repaired Mama's market cart. He worked with his head bent, one brown curl slipping from beneath his straw hat, and put every nut in a neat row so none vanished in the grass. That steadiness made me trust him. He brought my little brother Eli a smooth red stone from the creek because Eli collected things shaped like hearts. Once, when my shawl tore on a fence nail, Daniel stood with his back to me while Anna pinned it closed. He was careful that way. I loved him. I think I loved him. I don't know if I knew love yet, but I knew his laugh from across a barn. On our wedding night, he looked less like a husband with power than a boy handed a tool he'd never seen and told not to fail. The days before the wedding filled with work that looked like preparation. Women baked 60 loaves, scrubbed benches with sand, stitched my dresses, and packed jars of beans for our small house. Everyone taught me how to keep a marriage, except where teaching mattered most. Aunt Ruth showed me how to stretch flour through winter. Mama said never to speak sharply when a man came in hungry. Anna tucked 2 folded cloths into the bottom drawer and said, "I'd know when to use them," then turned red to her ears. I remember, no, wait, it wasn't Mama who carried my trunk upstairs. It was Miriam, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. That afternoon, she squeezed my hand until her ring pressed a half moon into my skin. She started to say, "Sarah, you can..." Then the kitchen door opened. Miriam let go, and the sentence went with her. Our bedroom is smaller than I expect, with whitewashed walls that look gray in lamplight and a maple bed Daniel's uncle built. One bedpost has a knot shaped like an eye. I keep looking at it because it feels safer than looking anywhere else. The quilt is a double wedding ring, made from dresses I know. Mama's brown Sunday sleeve, Anna's green apron, yellow cloth from my childhood curtains. Outside, a horse stamps against the hitch rail, and the trace gives a short metal jingle every few moments. The air smells of lamp oil, pine boards, and lavender hidden between the sheets. I'm wearing a white nightdress with shell buttons, and one button catches against a loose thread near my waist. Daniel removes his boots and lines them beneath the chair, toes even. His hands shake when he sets down the lamp. Neither of us knows where to begin, but only one of us has been told he must. He sits beside me without touching, and the mattress dips so sharply I brace my palm against the quilt. "Are you cold?" he asks. I say no, though my feet feel carved from ice. He nods as if I've answered something harder. His hand opens and closes on his knee. Mine stay folded until my thumbnail leaves a white mark in my palm. We talk about the horse outside. We talk about whether rain will spoil the hay. We talk about everything except why the door is latched. Then Daniel says, "My father said," and stops. The lamp flame leans when wind pushes through the window frame, and his shadow moves over the wall like another person. "A wife shouldn't turn from her husband," he says. His voice cracks on husband. I whisper, "Daniel, I'm afraid." He answers, "So am I." For one breath, I think that will save us. It doesn't. He reaches for me, and every muscle in my back goes hard. He pauses. "Is this right?" he asks, but neither of us knows what right should feel like. I say his name. Just that. He hears the fear. I know he does, because his face folds for a second, and his hand drops. Then the rule steps between us. A husband leads. A wife yields. A good marriage begins with obedience. He tries again, careful and clumsy, while I press my tongue to the roof of my mouth and stare at the knot in the bedpost. My breath turns thin. My jaw aches from holding still. I want to pull away and move closer at the same time, because I want comfort from the man I'm afraid of disappointing. Please wait, I say. Daniel whispers, I don't know how. Two frightened people are trapped inside one command, and my body is where it lands. I won't give you details that belong only to the girl I was. I'll tell you what matters. I say wait more than once. Daniel slows, but he doesn't stop, because in our world, slowing is what he thinks gentleness means. I grip the quilt until one of Anna's stitches snaps beneath my fingers. The sound is tiny, a dry little tick, yet I hear it over the horse, over Daniel's breathing, over the blood beating in my ears. He keeps asking, "Are you all right?" And I keep saying, "I don't know," because that's the only truth in the room. My body flinches before I can hide it. His face goes pale. For a moment he looks ready to cry, and I hate that I feel sorry for him. But I do. That's the thing nobody tells you. Harm can happen between two people trying to be good, when neither was taught that goodness includes stopping. Afterward, Daniel sits on the bed's edge, shoulders bent, holding his shirt in both hands without putting it on. I turn toward the wall and count brush marks in the whitewash. 7 above the washstand, 3 long and 4 short. My legs tremble when I stand, so I pretend I'm searching for the water pitcher. Daniel says, "Sarah?" I answer, "I'm tired." He says he's sorry, though I'm not sure either of us knows what he means. The room feels colder. The lavender beneath the sheet has crushed into a bitter smell, and the lamp glass is cloudy at the top. I find the snapped quilt thread and wind it around my finger until the tip turns purple. Daniel reaches to loosen it. I pull away. Then I apologize. I apologized. That part still catches in my throat. Before dawn, I learn the first skill of my marriage: how to make my hurt look like peace. The fact is that neither of us understands that agreement must remain alive from one moment to the next. We think marriage itself answers every question. Daniel believes my fear is something a patient husband should guide me through. I believe his disappointment would prove I've failed as a wife. No one tells us that wait means stop now, not proceed more softly. No one tells us silence isn't permission. The next morning, I carry biscuits to the table while walking in small steps because my body feels bruised and far away. Mama sees how carefully I lower myself onto the bench. She looks at my face, then at Daniel, then spreads apple butter on her bread. She knows. I know she knows. But she asks whether the chimney draws well in our new house. Daniel isn't trying to hurt me. That's what makes it worse. He thinks he has done what a husband is meant to do. Years later, outside the community, I learned one sentence that would have changed that night. Being married didn't mean I had given one answer forever. A wife could change her mind. A husband could stop without becoming weak or sinful. Neither of us had been given that much. We didn't know fear could make a person go still and appear obedient. We thought a quiet body was willing because nobody had taught us to ask again. The silence wasn't one missing talk. It was built into courtship, sermons, mother's warnings, father's jokes, and the way women folded stained cloths before sunrise without naming why. He wasn't a bad man. I need you to understand that. He was blind in the same dark room, feeling along the wall. But I was the one taught to call the dark holy, and I carried that grief into every night that followed. Those nights became a pattern before I knew patterns had names. I learned to hear Daniel's steps on the porch and guess his mood by how long he scraped mud from his boots. I'd set the blue cup beside his plate when I needed more time, because it meant I had a headache. By the second year, I could leave my body without moving. I'd count the ceiling boards, then the nail heads, then the tiny black fly trapped inside the lamp glass. 12 boards, 48 nails, 1 fly. My mind became a little room with a lock. I baked bread, bore children, laughed when neighbors visited, and learned to go quiet from the neck down there. I thought I was the only wife doing that. Turns out it was our community's best-kept recipe, right beside apple butter and silence. Daniel noticed more than I gave him credit for. He stopped at the door and asked whether I was truly tired, stressing truly as if it might open a window. I'd say yes, even when I meant afraid. He began sleeping in the chair during lambing season, claiming he needed to hear the barn, though the ewes were quiet and the chair left a red line across his cheek. I loved him for giving me those nights. I resented him for not naming why. Then I resented myself, which is an efficient way to spend 20 years. By our 10th anniversary, we'd built a tender life around a wound neither of us could face. He fixed my broken stool, warmed stones for my feet in winter, and never understood why I flinched when the latch caught on the first try. The first woman who almost told me the truth was Miriam. We were quilting a red and white star at Anna's house, while sleet tapped the window like fingernails. Miriam pricked her thumb, watched one bead of blood swell, and said, "Do you ever go away?" I knew what she meant. Not leave the house. Go away inside. My needle stopped halfway through the cloth. Anna's chair creaked. Nobody looked up from the red quilt stitches. I almost said every time. Instead, I handed Miriam a scrap for her thumb and told her the weather might clear. She nodded too fast. Later, Anna whispered, "Some things get easier," Miriam asked. "Do they?" Anna's mouth opened, then shut. A wet sleeve twisted between her hands. That pause was when I understood the silence belonged to all of us, not just my little room. Miriam's story came out in pieces over 3 years. Her husband, Jacob, was gentle in public and frightened in private, so he clung harder to every rule he'd been given. She slept with one foot touching the cold floor, because it helped her remember she had a body. After her 4th child, she asked the deacon's wife whether a woman could need distance from her husband. The answer was prayer, more rest, and a tonic that smelled like rusted pennies. When Miriam cried during washing day, her mother folded a wet sheet over both their hands and said, "Don't plant doubt." That was how questions were handled. They were treated like weeds, never like warnings. 4 months later, Miriam stopped coming to quilting. The official reason was weakness after winter fever. The real reason sat unspoken in every empty chair. By our 3rd decade, I'd become skilled at making absence look useful. I volunteered for births, stayed late after singing, and rose before dawn to tend bread that didn't need tending. I learned to keep my hands busy enough that no one noticed the rest of me had vanished. Daniel and I grew kinder with age, which made the grief harder, not easier. He began asking more often. Sometimes I answered honestly, sometimes I couldn't. We had good years. I need to say that. We had evenings when he read aloud while I shelled peas, and mornings when his hand found mine beneath the buggy blanket without asking for anything else. Beauty didn't erase harm. Harm didn't erase beauty. They sat at the same table, passing the salt, while the old clock above the stove clicked between them all night. I was 68 when I first saw the word consent printed in plain black letters. It happened in a clinic 2 counties away, where the waiting room had plastic chairs the color of canned peaches and a fish tank with one crooked castle. I was there because my blood pressure wouldn't settle. On the wall beside the coat hooks hung a diagram called the consent circle. I stood to read it while a little boy rolled a green truck across the floor. The paper said consent must be freely given, informed, specific, and reversible. Reversible. My knees went soft at that word. I gripped the back of a chair until my wedding ring pressed into my finger. The room didn't spin. It became still. For the first time, the rule Daniel gave me had another plain human name beside it. A counselor named Helen found me crying without making a sound. She wore purple glasses and a silver earring shaped like a leaf. The other ear was bare. She asked whether I wanted water. I said, "I think I've misunderstood my whole life." In her office, she drew 2 circles on paper. One was duty, one was choice. She showed me where they could touch without becoming the same thing. Then she explained that a body can freeze when trapped, and stillness isn't agreement. I wasn't angry, not then. I was just sad. Devastatingly sad for the girl in the white nightdress who thought fear was a flaw, and for the boy lining up his boots because he'd been told leadership meant pressing forward. That's the thing nobody tells you. Naming the harm can break your heart before it frees you. I went home and sat at the kitchen table until the clock struck 2. Daniel had been dead 7 years, and I talked to his empty chair as if he'd only gone to the barn. I told him about reversible. I told him wait had always been a whole answer. And then sorry, give me a second. I wished he could have known. That is the grief I carry most. Not only what happened, but the life we might have had if someone had handed us one honest sentence. I tried explaining it to a nurse my granddaughter knew. She said, "But surely you could have just said no." I looked at the vending machine behind her and realized she heard a word where I had lived inside a wall. I belonged to the place that built it, and not fully to the world outside it either. Still, the community gave me things I won't pretend were false. It gave me horses before dawn, their breath steaming above the fence while frost silvered each rail. Even now, one hoof against packed earth can pull my childhood close. It gave me bread from a wood oven, the crust blistered dark at the edge, and the center warm enough to melt butter before the knife left it. And it gave me my grandmother's hands in prayer, knuckles wide from work, one thumbnail split down the middle, resting with such peace on her black apron. I miss the hush before singing began too, when benches creaked and babies settled against shoulders. I miss these things with an ache that has no clean side. I am homesick for a place that hurt me. Both are true. They have always been true. The harm has a name too. Silence dressed up as holiness. 5 words, that's all. Beauty and harm can live in the same house, under the same quilt, spoken by the same loving mouths. I don't need to burn every memory to tell the truth about one of them. These days, I teach my granddaughters the names of their bodies without whispering. I tell my grandsons that kindness includes hearing a changed mind. I still make apple butter in the copper kettle, and I still sing the hymns when I'm alone, because some tunes feel like relatives. I don't hate the people who raised me. Sometimes I want to reach back through time, sit beside Mama while she shells beans into the chipped white bowl, and give her the words she was denied too. Maybe she'd finally tell me what she carried. And now I'm speaking to you. If you grew up somewhere your own body was kept from you like something dangerous, I see you. If obedience was praised so often that your fear learned to wear a smile, I see you. You survived something, and surviving is enough. You don't owe anyone a neat story, quick forgiveness, or proof that it hurt. You are not broken because your body remembers what your mouth couldn't say. You aren't cruel for loving people who failed you, and you aren't disloyal for naming what happened. The child you were made choices with the few tools she had. Be gentle with her. She got you here. Tonight, maybe place your hand over your wrist and feel the pulse there. It belongs to you. It always did, even when nobody around you knew how to say so. To the one still inside, your questions don't make you wicked, even when the room goes quiet after you ask them. To the one who left, missing home doesn't mean leaving was wrong. To the one thinking about leaving, you're allowed to move slowly, make a plan, and keep yourself safe. To the one lying beside a spouse, and only now finding words, your changed understanding still matters. To the one who recognized herself 3 minutes ago, breathe before deciding what comes next. You don't have to solve your whole life tonight. Put both feet on the floor. Feel the ground hold you. Find one person who can hear you without correcting your memory. Wherever you are in this, I see you. And you are not alone. The door in your mind doesn't have to stay locked forever. You may open it 1 inch at a time. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you felt listening to this, or which small moment made something inside you go still. There is so much more I haven't said yet. I'm just getting started. There are stories I haven't been brave enough to tell, but I'm getting closer. Subscribe to Rebecca Amish Home if you want to stay near these voices, because every story we name makes the next one less lonely. And to the members and Super Chat family, you're the reason the next story gets told. If you want to be part of that, the door is open. I'm 79, and I can't change the room where my silence began. I can't place new words in Daniel's mouth or mine, but I can refuse to pass that silence down. I can tell the truth while my voice holds. You were never made to disappear inside love.